Sometimes, it happens in a single breath, the kind of moment that feels like the world has stopped just to see what you'll do next. You know you shouldn't feel it, but you do. You tell yourself to walk away, but your heart doesn't move. That's how it was for Jeremiah and Denise that summer night, a night that started like any other, but ended as the one they could never forget. The air was warm, heavy with the smell of the sea, and the sound of waves breaking softly against the shore. Denise stood at the edge of the old boardwalk, her fingers tracing the worn wooden rail that had seen too many summers come and go. The sky above her was still painted gold from the setting sun, fading slowly into a shade of deep blue that promised the night would hold secrets. She told herself she came here to clear her mind, to escape the noise of the house and the laughter that didn't sound real anymore. But deep down, she knew why she was here. She knew he might come. Jeremiah had always been like the tide, leaving, returning, never saying when or why. He carried the kind of calm that made people feel safe and the kind of sadness that made them stay. Denise used to think she understood him, until the summer started to fall apart, until words turned sharp and smiles stopped reaching their eyes. Tonight was supposed to be different. The beach had emptied, the world had gone quiet, and for a moment, she thought maybe she could breathe again. She heard the soft crunch of footsteps behind her before she saw him. She didn't turn. She didn't need to. She knew the sound of his steps the same way she knew the sound of the ocean, familiar, uninvited, impossible to ignore. He stopped a few feet away, and even though she couldn't see his face, she could feel the weight of his eyes on her back. The silence stretched between them like something alive, filled with everything they had said and everything they never dared to. The wind lifted her hair and brushed it across her face, and she finally spoke, her voice quiet but steady. "You shouldn't have come." It wasn't anger. It wasn't surprise. It was just truth. The kind that hurt a little because it was too late to take it back. Jeremiah didn't answer at first. His breath caught somewhere between wanting to explain and knowing it wouldn't matter. The ocean kept moving. The stars began to appear, one by one, as if they were listening. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, softer than she remembered. "I couldn't stay away." There was no pride in his words, no apology either, just a confession, bare and honest, like the way the sea meets the sand, again and again, no matter how many times it breaks apart. Denise closed her eyes for a second, trying to hold back the warmth rising in her chest. She wanted to hate him for coming, for making it harder than it already was. But she couldn't, because part of her had been waiting for this, for him, even if she'd never admit it. She turned slowly, her eyes meeting his. The space between them was small now, but full of everything unsaid. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, aching, like two people standing in the ruins of what used to be something beautiful. Jeremiah took a small step forward, and the sound of his movement felt louder than the ocean. Denise's heart beat faster, not because of what might happen, but because she finally realized what already had, that no matter how much they tried to forget, summer had written their names in the same line, and the tide couldn't wash it away. The world felt suspended in that breath between them. Somewhere in the distance, a song played faintly from one of the beach houses, an old tune that sounded like memory. Denise looked down, her voice barely above a whisper. "It doesn't change anything, you know." Jeremiah nodded, but his eyes said otherwise. The night deepened around them, and the sea kept its rhythm, as if it already knew that before the night was over, they would break every rule they made to keep from falling again. The air around them felt alive, trembling with something that wasn't just wind. It was the kind of silence that pressed against your chest, the kind that made you forget to breathe. Denise looked away, her eyes drifting to the horizon where the last of the lights slipped behind the water. The ocean shimmered, restless, as if it too was waiting for whatever came next. She wanted to say something that would pull them back to safety, something that would build a wall between what they felt and what they knew was wrong. But the words stayed locked behind her teeth. Jeremiah took another slow step forward. His shadow merged with hers, two outlines in the fading gold. He wanted to speak, to tell her that he didn't plan this, that he wasn't here to make her choose. But every thought he had sounded too small for what hung between them. He had spent weeks pretending he didn't care, pretending that what they had was something that could be left behind, like a summer job or a broken bracelet. But now, standing there, seeing her again, the truth burned through every lie he'd told himself. The night air grew cooler. Denise folded her arms, not because she was cold, but because it gave her something to do with her hands. She could feel his gaze, gentle, steady, unspoken. There was something about the way Jeremiah looked at her that always made her feel seen, even when she didn't want to be. It used to make her feel special. Now, it only made her ache. "You shouldn't look at me like that," she said quietly, the words falling more like a sigh than a warning. Jeremiah smiled faintly. Not out of amusement, but out of pain. "How am I supposed to look at you?" he asked. "Like it's still summer," she whispered. "Like it's still us." He didn't answer, but his silence said everything. He took another step closer. Now there was almost no space between them, just enough for one last choice. Denise could feel the warmth from his skin, the pulse of something real and heavy in the air. The ocean breeze caught the loose strands of her hair, brushing them across his arm. The touch was barely there, but it felt like fire. She closed her eyes for a second, remembering the easy days, the ones filled with laughter, the days when everything felt light, when love didn't come with guilt or fear. She remembered sitting by the pool, their fingers brushing. The way he'd glance at her like she was the only person in the world. It all came rushing back, every moment layered on top of this one. It hurt not because it was gone, but because it still lived somewhere between them. Jeremiah took a small breath. "I tried to forget," he said softly, his voice cracking just enough to betray how much he meant it, "but I can't." Denise opened her eyes and met his. The honesty in his face broke something in her that she'd been trying to keep together. Her throat tightened, her heartbeat quickened. "Then try harder," she said, even though she didn't mean it. A flicker of a smile crossed his lips, bittersweet and quiet. He shook his head slowly. "You say that like you already know I won't." She turned away, but he didn't move. The distance between them now felt impossible, like two magnets refusing to stay apart. The stars above were brighter now, sharp and clear, watching as if they'd seen this story 100 times before. Denise felt tears, she didn't mean to cry, gathering behind her eyes, and she wiped them away before they could fall. She hated how easy it was to fall back into him. Jeremiah's hand twitched at his side. He wanted to reach out, to touch her one last time, to prove that what they had wasn't over, but he hesitated. It wasn't fear that held him back, it was respect. Respect for the way she was trying to stay strong, for the way she was pretending this didn't mean something. He knew if he touched her, she'd break. And if she broke, he would too. The night was thick now, the kind of dark that made the world feel smaller, more private. The sound of the waves grew louder. The moonlight caught in the corner of her eyes. She turned her face toward him, and for a heartbeat, neither of them moved. They just stood there, caught in that strange space between wanting and regret. Denise finally spoke, her voice trembling in the quiet. "If we do this, there's no going back." Jeremiah stepped closer, close enough that their breaths met, mingling in the night air. "Maybe there's nothing to go back to," he said softly. Her heart sank, not because he was wrong, but because he was right. The summer had already changed everything. There was no version of them that existed before this moment, not anymore. She felt his hand move, slow and hesitant, reaching for hers. For a second, she almost pulled away. Almost, but her fingers didn't listen. And then the world stopped again. The music from the beach house faded. The sea went quiet. And all that remained was them standing on the edge of a choice that would rewrite everything they thought they could control. The air felt different now, heavy, almost electric. The kind of weight that only comes when two people are standing too close, saying nothing but meaning everything. Denise could hear her heartbeat, loud and steady, drowning out the world around her. The ocean still whispered against the sand, but even the waves seemed to hold their breath. It was like the night itself knew this was the point of no return. She looked up at him, and for the first time, Jeremiah didn't try to hide. His eyes held a mix of fear and longing, that quiet chaos that only happens when love and guilt live in the same space. There was no pretending now, no clever lines or easy smiles, just truth raw and fragile, like glass. Denise wanted to say something that would stop time, something that would keep them from falling, but there were no words left to save them. Every sentence had already been spoken in the silence between their breaths. Jeremiah took a slow step closer. The world seemed to shrink until it was only them, two shadows outlined in silver by the moon. Denise could feel his warmth before he even touched her. It scared her how familiar it felt, how right. She had spent weeks convincing herself that she didn't need him, that the ache in her chest would fade with time. But standing there, she knew the truth. Some people never leave you, not even when they're gone. Her throat tightened. "We can't," she whispered, almost to herself. But her voice didn't sound convincing, not even to her own ears. Jeremiah's hand lifted slightly, hesitating in the air, caught between wanting and restraint. His fingers hovered near her arm, close enough that she could feel the ghost of his touch. "I know," he said quietly, "but tell me you don't want to." Denise froze. It was such a simple thing to ask, yet impossible to answer. She wanted to lie, to say no, to end it, but the truth was burning too bright in her eyes. She looked at him, and everything came rushing back. The laughter by the bonfire. The way he said her name, like it meant something. The nights they stayed up watching the stars and pretending they had all the time in the world. The memories weren't gone. They had just been waiting for this exact moment to wake up. I can't, she said finally, her voice breaking. I can't lie to you. Jeremiah's chest rose and fell, slow and heavy. The small distance between them disappeared. His hand brushed her arm, just once, and it felt like the air cracked open. The warmth of his touch spread through her like a secret she wasn't ready to keep. Denise felt everything inside her collapse. All the walls she built, all the reasons she told herself to walk away. They all fell quiet. The wind picked up, swirling around them. Her hair brushed against his cheek, and he didn't move. Neither did she. The stars above were sharp and endless. The kind of sky that makes you forget there's a world beyond this moment. Jeremiah looked at her like she was both the question and the answer. He leaned in slightly, close enough that she could feel his breath against her skin. Every heartbeat felt like thunder now. Her eyes fluttered shut, but she didn't step back. She could feel the heat of his body, the tension in his chest. The world seemed to tilt, just enough to make her forget why this was wrong. Denise opened her eyes again, searching his face for hesitation, for one last chance to stop. But all she saw was the same truth she'd been running from all summer, that she still loved him. Not the easy kind of love. Not the fairy tale kind that stays clean and perfect. This was the kind that hurt, the kind that broke you a little before it made you whole. Jeremiah's voice came out soft, barely a whisper. You don't have to say anything, he said. Just, don't walk away. She wanted to tell him she couldn't promise that love wasn't enough this time. But before she could, he reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The simple gesture undid her completely. Her breath caught, and for a moment, everything around them faded. The sound of the waves, the hum of the night, the noise inside her head, it was all gone. Denise's hands trembled. She didn't know where to put them, what to do, how to breathe. Jeremiah stood still, waiting, giving her a choice. He didn't pull her closer. He didn't rush her. He just looked at her, quietly, like he was memorizing her face, the shape of her, the way her eyes softened when she stopped fighting what she felt. And that was the moment it happened, not the kiss. Not yet, but the fall. The invisible line they both pretended not to see had been crossed. The air changed. The night tilted toward something inevitable. She could feel it, the pull, the gravity between them, ancient and certain. She didn't move, but her heart did. Every beat dragged her closer to him, closer to the moment she knew she couldn't take back. When their foreheads touched, it was like everything inside her exhaled. The tension dissolved, the fear faded, and all that was left was warmth. Jeremiah closed his eyes, his breath steady, his voice barely there. I missed you, he said. Denise wanted to say it back, but the words got lost in her throat. She didn't need to say it. He already knew. The night didn't need permission to remember what they had, it just did. And in that fragile pause, right before everything changed, they stood together, two hearts, holding on to a summer that refused to let go. For a moment, everything stopped. The world, the noise, the memories, all of it hung in the air like a held breath. Denise stood there, eyes closed, heart racing, caught in the stillness between what was and what would be. The wind had quieted, and the ocean moved slower, softer, as if it understood what was about to happen. The distance that once felt safe had vanished. There was no space left between them, not for doubt, not for reason, not even for fear. Jeremiah's hand moved first. Not fast, not certain, just slow, searching. His fingers brushed along her jaw, tracing a line that felt like the edge of something sacred. Denise's breath caught, her chest rising in rhythm with his. She opened her eyes, and in that single glance, everything came rushing back. Every fight, every laugh, every late-night promise they never kept. They had been so many things to each other, friends, strangers, almost lovers, and now, they were all of it at once. He didn't ask. He didn't need to. The answer was already written in the way she looked at him. Denise tilted her face up slightly, her lips parting just enough to let the truth slip through the air between them. The moment stretched long, trembling, alive, and then, finally, it broke. Their lips met soft, careful, like they were afraid of what it might mean, but it didn't stay careful for long. The kiss deepened, slow at first, then certain, filled with everything they had been holding back all summer. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't planned. It was messy and real and human. It was forgiveness and apology, longing and loss, all tangled together in a single heartbeat. Denise felt the world tilt beneath her feet. Every sound grew faint except for the rush of her own pulse. Jeremiah's hand slid to the back of her neck, grounding her, steadying her in the middle of the chaos they had created. She leaned into him, not because she wanted to, but because she couldn't do anything else. It felt inevitable, like gravity, when they finally pulled apart. The world returned, the sound of the waves, the faint hum of music from the beach house, the cool night air pressing against their skin. But everything had changed. The air felt heavier now, filled with something that couldn't be taken back. Denise looked down, trying to catch her breath. Her hands were still trembling. Jeremiah didn't move. He stood there, his eyes searching hers, trying to read what she wasn't saying. The silence stretched again, but it wasn't the same as before. This one was softer, almost peaceful. He wanted to reach for her again, but something in her face stopped him. She looked distant now, as if the moment had already started to fade. "That shouldn't have happened," she whispered. The words were quiet, but they hit the air like thunder. Jeremiah's lips parted, but he didn't argue. He just looked at her, his expression caught somewhere between pain and understanding. "I know," he said finally, "but it did." Denise turned toward the ocean, her arms wrapped around herself. The night breeze tangled through her hair, and she closed her eyes. The taste of salt lingered on her lips, part ocean, part him. She wanted to say that it didn't mean anything, that it was just a moment, a mistake, but that would have been a lie, and they had already built too much on those. He took a step closer, his voice low. "Denise, don't," she said quickly, her tone soft but firm. "Please, don't make it harder." He stopped, his hands falling to his sides. The light from the moon caught the edge of his face, and for a second, she could see how much it hurt him to stay still. He wanted to hold her, to promise her something real, something lasting, but promises had broken them before. Neither of them wanted to live that loop again. She turned back to him, her eyes glistening. "You'll leave tomorrow, won't you?" He hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah." Denise forced a small smile, the kind that hurts more than tears. "Good," she said softly. "Maybe we both should." Jeremiah took in a breath that sounded more like surrender than air. He wanted to say something, to stop her, but he knew there was nothing left to fix. They were both standing in the aftermath of something beautiful and doomed. For a long moment, they didn't speak. The moonlight shimmered across the water, painting them in pale silver. Somewhere in the distance, a gull cried out, and the sound echoed through the stillness. Denise reached down and picked up a small seashell, turning it over in her hand. She didn't know why, maybe because it gave